If you owned this book as a kid, watched Ghostwatch on Halloween night, and have a lifelong fear of the Wheelers, let's talk about some of the spooky shit we watched as kids. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Sinead. This is my spooky corner of YouTube, where I talk about spooky books, spooky films, things I remember from my childhood, and ways to calm the ghosts that live under your bed. This video is for anyone needing a hit of nostalgia, and also anyone who wants to understand why we elder millennials are the way we are. Would you like to read about ghosts? I have been revisiting some of the things I read and watched as a kid. The things that started my love of horror, of all things spooky and gothic and weird and wonderful. And a memory recovered is always better shared, because then I have accountability and you guys can confirm to me that that actually happened and it wasn't just something I dreamt because the voices. I started this series of videos over on TikTok, but it's time to bring it over here to all of you wonderful spooky legends. And I hope we'll fill you with all the nostalgia joys that you're probably looking for. Remember, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please hit subscribe. Now kids, if you're watching, they definitely aren't. Let me impress upon you how little parental control there was when I was growing up, for sure. Does anyone remember the opening episode of Twin Peaks? Because my parents let me watch that thinking, she's probably fine. This was the age of VHS, and also there were restrictions on certain films that we take for granted now. You couldn't get a lot of Disney films just to rent on video. You certainly had kids' films, but my parents, less discerning in their choosing. My parents would be in the video store trying to find something for them to watch, and then would pick up something vaguely cartoony, take it home, shove it in the top loader, and then go, there you are, have at it. Yep, it turned out that was a lot of manga. Watched a lot of very strange films about alien vampires when I was 6. It's great. I would never miss an opportunity to share some nostalgia with all of you. So here they are, some of the books and the films and the TV shows, and I hope some of you will remember them too. This list is obviously based on what I was able to access as a kid, so some of this may be completely nonsense to people if you're around the world. I shared it at the start. Who else had a copy of this? The Usborne Book of Ghosts. This is a reprint. You can see Reece Shearsmith is on the front. This was my Bible. This was my hymn sheet. This was my instruction manual through life. Unlikely Ghosts, the Cyclops Wolf. See, I did this bit. Oh God, where the ghosts gather. Can you see that? Just those graveyard pictures. These pictures and these little sketches, when I used to read these as kids, fascinated. Strange Customs with involving ostriches. I don't remember that. What even is a ghost? You're learning as you're terrifying yourself. Ghosts of long ago. I think they've cleaned this up in subsequent reprints. I don't necessarily think it was in the Usborne book, but I definitely read some books about ghosts and strange customs, and there were references to the Dark Continent. Just take a moment to see, this is an entire page dedicated to the village of Pluckley, which is about 30 minutes drive from where I am right now. Pluckley don't let you come and do any ghost walks around there. They used to have a whole Halloween do thing. Too many people were turning up, so they're very hush-hush about all the ghosts, but it's very haunted. As a kid, I didn't want to go to amusement parks. I didn't want to go to playgrounds. I wanted to go to haunted locations. Absolute joy. There was a special place in my heart for anyone who saw, on Halloween night 1992, Ghostwatch. For those who don't know, this was a mockumentary shot by the BBC, shown once on the channel, of a supposed live ghost watch, a ghost hunting experiment. It involved Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, who was a very famous TV presenter at the time, Craig Charles of Red Dwarf fame. All of this was set up as if it was real, and no one was told about it in advance. It was not printed in the papers as a mockumentary. It was printed as there is going to be a live ghost watching experience. The inspiration for the show seemed to be the Enfield poltergeist. It was a suburban woman living with her 2 daughters, and the 2 daughters had been plagued by this creepy entity. So you had cameras on location at this haunted house, and then you had cameras in the studio. You had Michael Parkinson interviewing ghost experts, and then you were taking calls from the public, and those were being fed through. I was but a child. I was but an adolescent watching this. I turned this on Halloween night, and I was alone in my house. I turned this on not knowing anything, just thought this was spooky Halloween programming, and I believed it. I believed what was happening. And over the course of the program, things get progressively stranger. There are strange things that happen in the studio. There are ghostly occurrences that happen in the house, and it's made out that it might all be fake, but then it seems like a real possession is taking over. I was watching this terrified. I was so scared watching the show, I turned it off before the end. It was reaching its crescendo, and I was so frightened I turned it off and went, I don't want to have nightmares. I was a sensible child in some ways, but I didn't realise it was all fake, and I still went to bed terrified. I didn't wait until the end when the credits rolled and you saw that they were all actors. This show had a huge influence for years, even though it was never shown again on BBC. You've now access to it on streaming platforms. It influenced Inside Number 9, their famous live Halloween episode that they did a few years ago, was based on this Ghostwatch phenomenon. I rewatched this recently, and I will say that it still stands up to the test of time. Of course, if you watch it now, you're going to see that it is very obviously 1992. The effects aren't brilliant, but they're not using CGI. They're not using a whole lot of special effects. It's just quick camera work. And you know what? It still was a bit creepy. It was still shivers, and maybe that's me remembering how frightened I was as a kid. But Ghostwatch, do you remember it? Did you see it live? Did anyone like me not realise it was fake? If you can access it, go and watch it. Don't come back in the comments and go, well, I didn't find it scary. You don't get it. You don't get it. You'll never get it. The child in you has died. I was very lucky as a child to be given lots of books. I read a lot of the kids stuff, a lot of the very twee stuff, a lot of the fluffy stuff, but I just adored anything dark and spooky. So, of course, I had my copies of Funny Bones, I had Fungus the Bogeyman, and I had this pop-up book, The Haunted House. The Haunted House pop-up book. I'll see if I can put some more pictures up showing the innards of the book. I read that for pleasure way, way, way into my teens and adulthood. I wore that book out because it was just a joy. It was fun. I'm going to mention a random kids book and a very specific element of it. Okay, The Jolly Postman. Now, stay with me here. The Jolly Postman, what a joy this book was. So this was almost like a pop-out book. It was about a jolly postman who's doing his rounds in the village, and it had little letters that you could pull out of it. But it was the letter for the witch. The letter for the witch that was a catalogue, I believe, of hobgoblin supplies. I read that letter obsessively. I gazed at it daily. There was something, even in a fantasy land, that delivered witchy supplies. I could order hobnail boots and have a cat and a broom. Screw the rest of the book and their letters. No, the witch. As a kid, you thought you were a bit weird if you were like, I quite like to live in a cottage in the woods with cats and spells and no one really comes to bother you. I mean, that is the dream now. What I wouldn't give for that. I mean, I have a husband. He can probably live out the back. In terms of kids' films that were pretty damn scary, let's take a moment for Return to Oz. Oh yeah, that sequel to The Wizard of Oz, early 80s, I believe it came out, and loved the vibe, but this was dark. This was a dark take on Dorothy returning to Oz. Things are not well in Oz because you have these figures, the Wheelers. Oh, they were terrifying. I mean, quite a feat of engineering, actually. Terrifying, but not the most scary thing in this film. If you've seen Return to Oz, you know full well that this was the most frightening bit. Mombi, who could take her head off and use the heads of girls she'd captured to make herself look more beautiful. And where Dorothy has to creep along the corridor at night to steal her key. Dorothy Gale. How did we sleep at night? When it comes to kids' films where you have to question why, what were they thinking? Because adults today watch it for the first time and are traumatized. Watership down. The book was bad enough, but they took the book and created nightmare fuel. Just the bloodiest, most traumatizing thing I think I've ever seen. And I've watched a lot of horror. Don't you bring Talker the Otter into this because I can't. I won't. I will not unlock that memory. If you have not seen Watership Down, I cannot in good conscience tell you to go and watch it. It is outstanding, but you'll need a lot of vodka. And while we're on the subject of animals being relentlessly slaughtered, who remembers the animals of Farthing Wood? Whoever made this hates animals, wants to see them die. It was just death. Death and misery. Why did all those animals keep getting tormented? Could we not just have had the nice animals frolicking through the woodland and the forest? Would that have been too much to ask? No, with the hedgehogs and the mice and the bird. For the life of me, I don't remember the plot of that. I just remember crying each week. While we're on the subject of animation, a truly, truly beautiful film, The Last Unicorn. Do you remember the harpy in that? Do you remember what happens to Fortuna? Red Bull? I think the worst part for me in The Last Unicorn is the old toothless lion who's in the cage. That's sad. Let him go free. Brilliant film. I do have to ask, have you ever felt like this? Round the Twist, the great series of ongoing weirdness and occasional snippets of pure terror and horror. Yeah. It was a bizarre series when I've been able to access it or even looked up a synopsis of it. It still remains very confused as in what's happening, and I think there's a plot here. And is this okay for kids? This does seem dark. It's dark, isn't it? But it gave us one of the most iconic theme tunes of all time, which we would just sing in the playground each day. Have ever felt like this? There was also a series shown at Christmas called The Box of Delights. Why was this in that series? I can barely remember A Box of Delights, but this haunts my dreams. Yeah, the wolf and that fucking puppet. It had a really high production value. I remember this series. It was really, really expensive for its time. I don't think it looks quite as expensive now when you look at it. It's a lot of... They were doing their best. They were doing their best for this fairy tale, dark fairy tale story that was shown at Christmas. It was really hard to get hold of for years, but now you can access it on streaming, I believe, if you want to indulge in that and go back. But it was, again, why? The creators thought, you know what will help here? An undercurrent of death and horrible, horrible creatures that will haunt your dreams. Let's make sure children never sleep again. That's what parents want. But not one of those things that I watched or read or saw ever put me off horror. There are entire channels dedicated to this book series, and it gives me great joy to see them revisited. It is the Point Horror series of books. Now, this was my kind of book when I was a teenager, when I was at school, and there was a lot of Sweet Valley High going around. Everyone was reading those. No, not my cup of tea. And it sort of persists to this day. That you have your Sweet Valley High, you have your romance, you have your kind of cutesy, oh, this is relatable problems. No, I wanted point horror. I wanted people stalking each other and snowmen who come alive and kill you, and just, you know, weird murder plots on an island of teenagers, and snakes, and that girlfriend who broke the guy's hand by just like ripping his fingers apart. That was in there. That was exactly what I wanted, and I continue to want now. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And as ever, no judgment if you were a Sweet Valley High kid, if you liked to read those books and didn't like horror back then, and if you still don't now and you're just enjoying this program. If you like light, frothy romance, if that is your escapism, do it, get it, consume it by the bucket load, do whatever makes you happy. I have always been happy in the world of horror, with ghosts and goblins and finding witches and anything that was spooky. Hook it to my veins. That gives me the absolute warmth that I need in my heart. I will continue digging through my brain to try and remember all the other things that I read, that I watched as a kid, but maybe you have suggestions that if you want to drop in the comments and we could revisit in the future, let me know. Perhaps one of these books or programs or films deserves a deep dive. You can let me know where your preference might lie there, but let me know what absolutely tingled your spine as a spooky kid. Please like, save, and share if you wish this video, and subscribe to my channel so I can keep bringing you spooky content and send crows to watch you while you work. Stay spooky, bye.